Well, welcome to today's webinar. We're so glad that you've joined us from your school, maybe your home office, maybe you're even in Starbucks, my favorite place. If I could watch a webinar, that's where I would be. But grateful for the opportunity to have you join us today. We're going to be talking about a very important subject, the role of the head in leading school growth. And you see Dennis Chapman there on your screen, and you're going to hear extensively from him today. You know me, obviously, you've been following me online, and appreciate you doing that and being a part of my webinars. And so just continue to encourage you to check out my resources as they become available with my blog posts and other webinars along the way. And I'm really excited about today's webinar because I've known Dennis for a number of years. In fact, we partnered together at two different schools when he was at the Out of Door Academy in Sarasota, and this past year at the Village School of Naples. And they've had just a great success story through Dennis's leadership, and they've been able to experience 10% growth. And so that's what we're going to focus in on today. You're going to hear Dennis's story of growth, and you're really going to be able to peer into the strategies that they've been able to implement. And at the same time, you'll be able to understand and see Dennis's role as the head of school and what was able to do in leading his team in that new role for him as he transitioned from another head of school role. And you'll really get that inside perspective of the Village School and their successes, as well as the importance of the head of school and leading that growth along the way. And so as we designed this webinar today, we put it together more in an interview type of style. And we thought that that would be a great approach to be able to personalize it, and almost like Dennis and I are sitting across the table having this conversation about school and leadership. So, I just want to start, Dennis, with the first question, which gives you actually an opportunity to provide an introduction. Share with us your background and how this has prepared you for leading the Village School, and maybe even some insight into what motivated you to become head of school. Why did you want to do that? Because you actually took a non-traditional route of, seeing yourself in that position. So
Absolutely.
Take it away.
Thank you so much, Rick. And I'm so honored and humbled to be here following Dr. Mott, that had 3 books that he's written. I've written 0 books, so but hopefully we have a couple takeaways that people can leave with. But I've had the pleasure throughout my career to work with some tremendous individuals, learning from some really great independent school people. And so as you see on the slide there, I've been 3 schools before here. So I started at the Benjamin School in North Palm Beach and was in the development office there and got to know a lot of great people. Then I moved from there to the Out of Door Academy in Sarasota, where I was there for 8 years, first as Director of Advancement, and then became Associate Head for Advancement. And I'll talk a little bit about that here as well. And then I was at the new school in Fayetteville, Arkansas for 4 years before I came here last year to the Village School. So 3 Florida schools. I'm a Florida boy. I'm from Miami originally and actually attended Florida Christian and Westminster Christian. And so I'm really passionate about Christian education. So excited to be part of this school that it values Christian education. So dive a little deeper at the Out of Door Academy, or ODA. David Mahler, who's the head there still, has just done a tremendous job, and Rick, as Rick knows, and has worked with David and Laura Murphy and the team there. I was just so honored to be part of it, and I learned so much during my time there. We had a great run together. As you can see, we raised over $30 million. We started with a $200,000 endowment and ended with a $20 million endowment.
Wow.
And our low point on enrollment was 595, and then by the time I left, we got up to 750. They've taken that well beyond that now. In fact, back in 2006, we had about 36 seniors, and now I understand they have 90 per grade in the high school. So that school continues to just grow and explode. It's very proud to be part of the 94% retention rate. We spent a lot of our energies on retention, and when we hit that mark, it was really exciting. So after I had been there about 5 years, I had an opportunity to go to another school to be a Director of Advancement, and that was the point in my career where I felt that I was at a fork in the road, really, as I'm either going to be a development guy or I'm going to do something different. And I realized that I had a great opportunity to learn from one of the best heads, in my view, in NIS, and David Mahler. And so I asked David if he would be willing to mentor me. And with that meant I needed to fill up my bucket on curriculum. So I got involved in the classroom with curriculum design and teacher evaluation, and went back to school, received my master's in educational leadership at the University of South Florida, which was a great experience. Which was involved in the NAIS Aspiring Heads, which I highly recommend. SEIS also has a great program for that as well. And it was really great. And really the reason I wanted to do it, because David asked me that same question, right? He's like, why do you want all that comes with the headaches of being a head of school? And really I wanted to have that impact, that change that we were able to experience together. I wanted to be able to bring that to another school. And that was really the impetus for the decision. And I love it. I love every day of the job. It's you never know what the day is going to bring, and that's really kind of the exciting part of it. So as you see there, Rick and I work together. Our school, the Out of Door Academy, is a bit of a unique name, and with that, Rick and I and our teams talked about how we can really take advantage of that. And Rick's team developed the OUT campaign, as we like to call it, Outthink, Outperform, and Outshine, which actually won an Addy and a lot of different awards, and really helped push the school forward. The Pass It On video, I put a little screenshot of it there. If you've ever heard Rick speak in the last 10, 15 years, perhaps you've seen him share that video. It's one of his favorites.
Yeah, it is.
And we were so excited to partner with Nick Gullick on that. I'm actually partnering with Nick again here next week to do our video here. And it was a great concept that was developed by a lot of people and really helped push our marketing forward. And then Final Sight. Final Sight's been a partner of mine since the Benjamin School. I actually met Rob DiMartino there. We've remained friends since, and he's actually, I've utilized Final Sight at all 4 of the schools I've been a part of, and they did a great job with our marketing presence. From there, I moved over to the new school, and as you see there are the 2 buildings of the 3 that we were able to construct. I followed the founding head of school there, and that had been there for about 43 years prior to my time. And it was a great experience to be able to launch an upper school division. 2 lead gifts that came in. One was a $10 million gift, and then the other was a $3 million gift, which
That's an amazing lead gift. Sorry to interrupt, but $10 million just doesn't come across your desk every day. So
yeah, it was amazing to be a part of too. Very generous family there in Northwest Arkansas that had a grandchild there for 26 consecutive years. And, I will never forget the day of walking into the board meeting in January with 2 pledge forms, one for 10 million and one for 3 million. And it was really the result of, a lot of great work by a lot of folks. And I'm really excited about the vision of what we could do. So in the photo there is the Innovation Center, which is a 2-story innovation center and a 3-story academic center. Not pictured is a gymnasium that will eventually be a field house. So you see there, we also had experienced a lot of growth in the annual fund, went from 93,000 to 350,000, and then enrollment from 323 to 447, which is a 38% increase. And it was just a wonderful place in the country. If you've not been there, it was not on my radar before I went there, but just such wonderful people, and I felt blessed to be part of the community.
Yeah, that's great, Dennis, and to see your experiences with leading growth along the way. I hadn't heard quite the story about the new school and your experiences there, so that definitely has translated well for you as you embarked on this new head of school role at the Village School. So tell us a little bit about the current situation that you walked into and what steps you took to grow the enrollment at the Village School.
Sure, absolutely. So I thought I'd borrow a little Will Smith line. Okay, here's the situation. Those of you that are aging myself a little bit, but as you see, I followed the founding head of school again. It must be my thing, Rick. I don't know, but it was certainly a big shoes to fill coming here. The founding head and her husband, the senior pastor of the church, built this place from really grains of sand, and the school had grown exponentially on word of mouth. A little bit of marketing, but really word of mouth, strong word of mouth. So situation I inherited based on her retirement is, retention had dipped, I think knowing that there was going to be a transition in leadership and not knowing what that would look like. The upper school being in its infancy. So interestingly enough, the new school and the Village School are on parallel tracks for their upper school. So both schools have a senior class this year. which is pretty interesting. So to be able to be on the other side of it was kind of a fun thing to be a part of. But coming here, 43 total high school students for 9th through 11th grade, only 11 freshmen. So the number had actually gone down a little bit from where it had been before. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So the overall enrollment, as you see there, declined from 537 down to 494. There wasn't an investment at the time in marketing or communications and marketing person, which, as you can imagine, based on those numbers, it was putting a strain on the overall operating budget. So that's what we inherited, a great school with great people. Just, I can't stress enough just how excited I was to become part of this school and to be leading this school with this faculty, staff, and parent body. So some of the initial moves I made, I picked up the phone, I called Rick, and I would recommend that to other folks too. And I said, hey, here's where I'm at, and here's what I need, and we began a dialogue on what that might look like. I hired a director of communications. I organized what I call the MAD team, the Marketing, Admission, and Development, which is led by me. And I think that's important, which we'll talk a lot about in this webinar, the importance of the head of school being very involved in the life of the marketing, development, and admissions efforts. We partner with Finalsite, as I mentioned before. You know, your website is the front door to admission. And if you're not putting money into it, you need to. It needs to be responsive. You know, it needs to be very web friendly. And it was a great move for us. And it's something I would definitely recommend to others. And then we also hired a digital media coordinator, someone that really has taken our social media efforts to the next level.
Yeah, and then those are definitely some critical moves that were foundational to your success. You know, to get the right, you know, team and positions in place to be able to move you forward. And you know, I like the concept of the MAD team. Not that you guys were mad, but
Right.
certainly you were focused in on what you needed to do to move you forward. So talk to us a little bit about the team and how you created that team and that you needed to be able to grow the enrollment. You talked a little bit about the positions, but talk to us a little bit more about that concept.
Absolutely. We're really coming into this and with the understanding to the faculty and staff, all of us administration, we're all admission officers, all of us every single day, and teachers more so than even staff because they're on the front lines with retention. And so that was a constant dialogue that we talked about. I added the position of Director of Teaching and Learning to help us align our curriculum, and I added that person to the MAD team because that was very helpful for us to have really our fingers on what was going on, or, you know, on the pulse of what was going on in the school and with our curriculum and making sure our marketing matched that. We utilized the weekly coaching with Rick for our Director of Admission, and also the Enrollment Management Association Conference has a lot of great training, as many of you on this call know. And enrollment, we discussed it frequently in admin and all school meetings, and that was something we did a lot at the Out of Door Academy, and I brought that with me. One of the things we look to hire for, beyond all of what you would think, and we're going to talk a little bit later about the profile of a teacher, but energy and positivity, right? These are things that everyone can do. Everyone can be positive. Everyone can bring some energy to the table, and we just felt that was really important to have those folks within our school community, and we had them here already, which was great. It was just adding to them. And then knowing what you need to outsource and what you can accomplish in-house successfully. I think every marketing and mission development person struggles with this, and heads struggle with this, is you really, it's unless you have a staff of 10 plus, it's really almost impossible for smaller schools to be able to accomplish big goals and big dreams. And so you have to really know, okay, we're gonna have to outsource this, graphic design maybe, or social media, or whatever it might be. And that was something that we really looked at doing. Is our budget would never allow us to be able to have the amount of people we would really need to feed the beast that is marketing communications.
Yeah, actually, Dennis, it would help to just know that overview of your department right now. So,
Sure.
so in admission, you have a director of admission.
Right.
Is there just one person in that department?
Right. Right now, it's 1.5. So we have a split person between admission and development. So that's new this year. But yes, it's still very lean for a school of over 550 students.
And is that split person focused more on the data entry, the receptionist portion, the main point of initial contact with inquiries? Just curious.
Yeah, a little bit of everything, giving tours. It's really a team effort. I think one of the things I feel it's made us very successful here is everybody's willing to do whatever it takes, and you'll see that throughout this presentation where we've got division heads, doing, whatever it takes, spectacular or being out and about in the community. No job is beneath anybody here. And I think that's a mentality that runs up and down throughout this organization. Whatever it takes, we roll up our sleeves and we get it done. And so, because we're small, and as many of the schools are that are on this call as well, is, you got to make it work. You got to make it happen. And, there's no such thing as we can't do this, in my view. I never like to hear that. There's got to be a way. You just got to keep looking for different avenues on how to get there.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a very collaborative effort here with our group. And I believe that's led to our success.
Yeah, and then on the marketing communication side, tell
Mhm.
us a little. You have one position there, or more than that?
Right now we have one. So we have one person doing digital media, but that's evolving too, as we're looking to split that into two, people, one person overseeing and the other person kind of doing a lot of that work, but both of them, doing tasks. There's so much overlap, and I think that's one of the things a lot of schools struggle with is kind of who does what, and then where do they report, right? So you see everything from development, which has always been historically where communications reported, but now more schools are seeing that go towards admission, which does
Right.
make sense since 90% or more of your revenue is coming from tuition dollars. So it does make sense to have that. I like the idea of the head being involved, really,
Mm.
and being kind of a go-between as we parse out the work amongst one another. And that kind of works for us. So it's really what works for your school in a lot of ways. But I think the non-negotiable, in my view, is for the head to be involved. The head's got to be involved at some level, even if you're a very large independent school. But that's how we work in kind of a smaller environment.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, obviously, through my coaching experience with hundreds and hundreds of schools, I see a marked difference when the head of school is a part of every meeting that we have. And that's the case of what you did this past year as we worked together.
Yeah,
And you've been able to successfully lead, that enrollment growth this year. So that's what it takes. It takes that head of school investing time and energy into this effort and to the people, the staff, to accomplish the tasks. So great.
absolutely.
So tell
Yeah,
us a little bit more about your role, in
yeah,
the enrollment and marketing effort, and how did you work to motivate your team and inspire them along the way?
yeah, absolutely. Well, following a founding head now twice, I learned a lot of lessons the first time that I went at it, and so this time I really focused on the culture. If you get the root right, the fruit will come, and that's what John Gordon, who I'm a big fan of, likes to say, and it's so true. Really focusing on the culture. So a great read that I would recommend if you haven't, The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. It's a great read. So many stories of all types of different organizations that have everything from the Navy SEALs to the San Antonio Spurs and everything in between. And it really has a lot of great takeaways that you can implement. One of those is a rally cry. And so at our first admin retreat, when I started 2 summers ago, we developed Knights for Life, and we're clearly the Knights, as you can see behind my head. And it brought us together in a very positive way, but it's obviously a very strong retention message. We want everybody to be Knights for Life. We just kept saying that over and over again. We got T-shirts that we wore on the first day of school, and we continue to wear here throughout the year. Focusing on Knights for Life. We want everyone to be a Knight for Life, and what does that mean? We start as early as infant care, and we have through 12th grade now, so we pretty much have you covered until college. So that's the goal, and so part of that is focused on positive leadership. We put a retention goal for the year for this past year of 90%, which we hadn't been at 80% in several years. So to go to 90 would be pretty impressive. So we'll say a little bit later how we did on that goal, but focusing on that, something we did that's been really successful and has been embraced. You never know how these things are going to go, Rick, until you try them.
Right.
But we started last year at faculty meetings, not every faculty meeting, but a majority of them, with shout outs. So basically, I don't give them. I just bring the bag of candy, and one colleague will shout out another colleague, and it just keeps going and going and going. And sometimes it'll come up, 15 minutes worth of these kind of going back and forth, and it just creates a positive vibe. And what people comment on when they come to our campus, through the halls, they see smiling kids, smiling teachers, smiling parents. Everyone's happy. And you've been on our campus, Rick, and I think you can attest to that. It just feels different. And I really think that is as a result of the positive culture that we're continuing to build here. And that started with the Knights for Life.
Yeah, that's great. Very good.
So something I came into is, really wanting to be very clear on what my expectations are, and And any of us that have had new heads of school come in or new bosses know it's really important. Okay, what is this person like, and what do they want from me to be successful? And so these were five, things that I had come up with throughout my career that I felt were really important. First is assume positive intent. I actually have a 2x4 over my head here that has assume positive intent from my last school. That was nicely done on the die cutting machine. But that really the thought of that is, always looking for the positive in what people are doing. It's so
Mm,
easy for us as humans to say, oh, there must be a reason that they did this and it's negative. And I think if we just flip that mindset and realize everybody's doing the best they can, everybody's trying their hardest. None of us want to be failures, right? We all want to try and do our best. We're going to fall short of that at times, but I think that's where love and accountability come in as far as leadership. The second one, I think we've all experienced or schools and organizations that have gossip or passive aggressive behavior just kind of running through them. Though that type of behavior will absolutely kill an organization,
yeah.
and you've got to root it out, and you've got to just not tolerate it. It will kill whatever positivity you have going forward. We all know that every organization is not perfect. There's not a perfect school. There are things that we're going to have to address. But I think instead of having as I said, and I shared these by the way, not just with the faculty and staff, but I shared this with all the parents and the students. And so these are the rules of our engagement as a community of learners. And so the rule is really, I don't want to see the parking lot conversation. Come into my office and tell me. And if you need to close the door and vent, that's great. I'd rather you do that so and allow us to be able to address what's on your mind than be talking about it and swirling it out there in the community. So that's an important one for me. Students first. And that's what we do, right? We are
Mm,
in schools for a reason. And so every decision we make as a leadership team, is it best for the students? That's the framework. And if you're not looking at that, you should be, in my view. That's why we do what we do. Communication principles, it's so important. I don't know how many times I've been in schools where you do surveys and it comes back communication issues. And I think that'll probably live forever in every school in
yeah.
America. But we try to always get better. And so one of the things we've embraced is a 24-hour rule. And if you don't have the answer, at least get back to them that you don't have the answer and that you're working on it. Nothing hurts more than silence from a phone call or voicemail or an email or unanswered text. And strive for candor with one another. We have to have tough conversations at times, but we're not going to be brutally honest, but we're going to be very candid. And then use good judgment. This is something I took from David Mahler
Mm,
back at ODA. He would say, I wish we didn't have a faculty handbook. I wish we didn't have to have one. I wish we just had use good judgment. So we try to preach that to all of our folks in our community. So those are the Chapman's rules of engagement, and they are in various places on our campus, so everybody can kind of see them.
yeah, that's actually cool. When I was there on my visit, you'd only been on board for like a month or two,
Yeah,
and you had these rules of engagement, put up on campus. And so that's just a great reinforcement of the values of what we're trying to strive for.
absolutely.
So it's awesome.
Thank you. And then lead by example. So one of the things, sorry, that's a little pixelated there.
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
Yeah.
It could have been when I downloaded it from Google Drive to PowerPoint, there may have
Okay.
been an issue there. So I
Yeah.
apologize.
Yeah,
It's
that's
my
okay.
fault. It's not my fault, not Dennis's fault.
It's all right. It's all good. But maybe it's to protect the innocent there, right? Because
Yeah,
that's
that's
myself
right.
and my kids. But as you could kind of see there, we rode on a float together for the Naples Christmas Parade, and the theme we were the nights before Christmas. So I read the night before Christmas, and it was the coldest evening of the year. Of course, this is by Southwest Florida standards, but
That's right.
we were pretty chilly, but it was great exposure. We actually got a couple students as a result of doing this. And so when you have these ideas and people think, is it just brand exposure or is there any ROI on it? We actually had ROI on it. We actually had families that said, we didn't know about the village school. And so we saw your float. And I guess my point to that is as heads of school, we've got to kind of do whatever it takes and be willing to be that person in front. So what's even better though about this, Rick, is the first concept was we were going to do a beach scene and I was supposed to wear a red Speedo, which luckily for all those that attended, that did not happen. But
Yeah,
hey,
that
if
would
it would,
not have made a good picture right here. We definitely would want it granulated here.
that, yes, exactly. So luckily that concept didn't fly for a lot of reasons. But whatever it takes, you got to be willing to do. And I think that's the attitude that we have here, and kind of be out there in front as the leader.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
And then active listening. I'm a big believer in this. And so what we did coming into the school is Rick's survey, of course, with the parents. I met with all 130 of our faculty and staff at the beginning of the year. In fact, over the summer, which was great. So I started on July 1st, as many heads do, and I had a full calendar for 2 weeks of faculty and staff coming in, and it was excellent. And I posed 6 questions to them coming in. So it was basically, what do you hope that I change? What do you hope that I keep? What can I do for you personally to make you the best version of you? What can I do to what was my other question? What do you love about the school? Those types of questions, and they were really great. I lost my notes, or I can remember the other two, but I really got a lot of good feedback from the faculty as a result of that. And with that, I was able to make some changes relatively quickly. What are you afraid that I might do, and what do you hope that I might do? Those were, I kind of put those together into 2, but they were actually 6 questions.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of really good, and I saw a lot of themes, I saw a lot of patterns to those questions. And with that, I shared all of this with the entire community. So we did a state of the school address, which I also did at the new school, an annual state of the school, where we are, kind of what are the metrics of the school, but even more so, I shared what was on everyone's mind. And that really helped us to get to kind of move priority re-enrollment forward. And that's something we'll do every year. But that active listening of really taking copious notes and actually doing something with those, rather than just, you do surveys and you've got to share the results. And Rick's a big believer in this too. You got to share the results with folks, otherwise they're not going to continue to want to fill out a survey. And so it was great. And I think being an active listener is so incredibly important to leaders, and I highly encourage it.
Yeah, it really is, and that's wonderful that you hit the ground running with all those meetings, because you were able to really get a pulse of the people, the culture, and they told you things that you needed to know to pave the way for your leadership at the school. So obviously, one of the key concerns walking in was looking at the retention, and you wanted to work to improve that at the school. So just share with us, what are some of the strategies that you put in place, you implemented with your team to be able to improve your retention rate?
Sure. Well, it's all about retention, right? And so it was talked about we started a weekly all-school meeting, which is something I didn't do at New School. I wish I had, because just having that face time with the full faculty is so crucial to building relationships and having them understand who you are and what you intend to continue to do. And so we still do it, and we'll continue to do it as long as I'm here. I take about the first 10 or 15 minutes and just give some announcements. I try to give anything that is important for them to hear from me face to face rather than an email. So anything personnel related for sure, anything that we're kind of working on behind the scenes, so they know what we're up to, that goes face to face. And then the rest of the meeting, the rest of the 45 minutes, it's either ed tech, or it's a division meeting, or something with professional development. But we talk about retention, and we formed a retention committee. We've asked our faculty and staff to share with us, how what they're hearing. What's their ears to the tracks there, if you will, and they hear what's going on, and they can share that information with us. And that gives us an opportunity as a retention committee to look at it and say, okay, who's the best person suited to talk to this family? Is it the head, or is it a teacher, or is it the division head admissions? And that's really important for us. And then bridge events. So stay and play, that's something we've done with the younger kids, and we've tried to pair up the grades, the transition grades, junior K and K. So get those families together to stay after school. So really what pulls them in on a Friday is they get to skip the car line. So they can park and not have to kind of mess with the end of the day car line, which can be challenging at schools. So they come in, they play on the playground, they get to know one another. And it's great because those junior kindergarten parents can talk to the kindergarten parents and say, well, why did you choose a village school? And we really focus on those grades that way. So that's really helped. We do a lot of other things as we look at 5th to 6th and 8th to 9th, but the stay and play is one that's just, it's a lot of fun. It's really easy. It costs no money at all. It's zero money. So no marketing dollars required, just your time.
That's always a good thing, right?
Absolutely. And then the big one, this to me was the biggest hit for us to really move the school forward. So as I stated earlier, we had 11 freshmen from the year prior to this year, and we really needed to do something to change that. And what we were hearing was the parents wanted the kids to stay at this school from 8th to 9th. It was the kids that didn't want to stay. So we had a great opportunity this year. We had 43 8th graders that were very close-knit class. And we knew we had a moment in time to really try to change the narrative, because the narrative had been, it's cool to leave, but it's not cool to stay. And we had to flip that.
Hmm.
We wanted everybody to be a Knight for life, right? And we wanted these kids to be Knights for life. And so one of the events that really started this was Freshman for a Day. So they shadow with a freshman for the full day, and run the classes with them. But they come in, they start when they walk into the day, they don't know what's coming. So we kind of catch them by surprise on a Friday afternoon, and they come in, and the whole entire upper school is cheering them on as they walk in. They're the stars for the day. And then they're kind of treated to the whole experience. And we do some special fun things for them, but they see that the experience from eighth to ninth is very different. And what happened to a lot of these kids is they saw that what they thought was not cool was actually pretty cool. And
Hmm.
so we saw kids that were a 0%, no chance they're coming for here for ninth grade, go to 50% after that day. We saw kids that were on the fence go to 100%.
Hmm.
And then it just kind of kept moving in that direction. And so, that was a huge event for us. We had a series of bridging events where we began to give them a taste of the upper school. So they could come into one day a week, they could come into the student center, which is where we've got ping pong and foosball and all that stuff. That was kind of a big thing. We would have social events where they could come in and be part of it. We had a dinner that was hosted by two families, and what it really came down to is we'd have these conversations about, okay, who's staying, who's not staying. So at this dinner, I'm like, okay, let's run the numbers here. And at this point last year in October, we thought maybe 5 to 8 kids for sure were going to stay out of the 43.
Yeah, I remember
And
those conversations, and
yeah,
yeah.
and we just kept the momentum going, and we got everybody in that room to put their hand up and say, okay, who's coming, who's on the fence, and we just kept that dialogue going. And it was really a combination of all those factors. The parents started to see, well, my kid's getting excited about this, I'm kind of excited about it. And then there were a few key kids in a few key social groups that said, you know what, I'm in. I'll put my hand up, I'm in. And just grew and grew and grew to 38 freshmen,
Hmm.
which 29 of those were freshmen that were retained. So 67% that we added 9 to them. But it's much easier to add 9 to that group than it is to add 9 to like 7 or 8, right? So you've got to get that critical mass going forward. And there's no easy solution. There's no shortcut in my mind to grow a high school, to start a high school. You have got to prove yourself every single day. You have to have a team that has been there and done it, that kids can look at, and parents can look at and say, these guys know what they're doing, these gals know what they're doing. And we have that here. And so the result of that was we doubled the size of the division. We went up to 88 upper school students, from 43 to 88, more than doubled in a year. 10% overall growth, and 87%. We didn't quite get to that 90. At one point we flirted with it. We got to about 89, and we had a little attrition towards the end. But a really kind of exciting first year here at the Village School, and it was just again blessed to be a part of it, of something pretty fun.
Yeah, and the thing I like about what you did is that it wasn't like a one-time event or one-time strategy. It was a sustained effort over time where you're really working and trying to get those families, those eighth graders, to stay.
Yeah,
So it's like a one student, one family at a time battle that you were involved in
yeah,
along the way. So
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And it was really the kids. When the upper school
Mhm.
kids really wanted this class. Like, they're like, we know what this can mean for our basketball team.
Yeah.
We know what this can mean for our drama program. And they started recruiting them. And we had that again. We just had our freshman for a day this year. And we were, a little uncertain how that was going to go. We have a class this year coming up of a lot of kids who have older siblings at public school.
Mhm.
And so people are a bit dubious of what that's going to look like. I'm an eternal optimist, and so I'm always looking at how this is going to hopefully play out. And they left that day with a different opinion, because you know what? Maybe it's a little bit different than what I thought. They like the freedom, they like the teachers, they love the environment and what we're creating here, and it's changing the narrative. You just got to keep doing that. But when you get the kids recruiting the kids, then you're golden then, in my view. So that was a
Yeah.
huge move for us.
Right, and they're the ones who are really driving that decision, especially from eighth to ninth grade.
Yeah.
So it's important to focus in on them. So that's
Yep.
great with retention, and certainly that's part of the equation of growing the enrollment in a school. But tell us a little bit about the marketing strategies that your team implemented and the difference that they made.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of this obviously was our work with Rick, the TVS fans. That was really focusing on capitalizing on the word of mouth. So as I stated earlier, word of mouth for our school, there are heads of school and admission people that would just love to have the word of mouth that we have in this community. My first year, I would go places and I would hear people talking about the village school. They didn't know who I was, so they would talk pretty openly and, nary a bad word. I mean, it was very positive in this community. So really capitalizing on that. So we did an event where we brought everybody together and we asked them to go out and, write reviews and to really spread the word, try to push tours, try to get folks here, and again, keeping that positivity going. And my wife actually, who is an educator and stay-at-home mom now, but she actually came in and has became the Parent Association liaison. The Parent Association had hit a little bit of a pause, and while that's a little atypical and not something she wants to do for forever, but she certainly wanted to help get it jump started. And she's so likable, that people just wanted to they're kind of drawn to her. And so she was able to do that, and it really, kind of moved that needle forward. And we brought the parents back in, feeling, for them to understand, we want you to be part of this. You have to be part of this, and that's also a key strategy for retention. The statistics bear that out. We certainly increased our social media presence, with Rick's help and guidance. We were definitely out in the community more. As you see, these are members of our leadership team, curriculum folks, Director of Teaching, Learning, and Missions out there on Spooktacular, which is a kind of a Halloween event that's downtown here in Naples, out there representing the school, and again, getting the name out there. The Christmas parade, Earth Day, all that kind of stuff. We're, anywhere we can be out in the community and getting, the name of the school out there. What I didn't mention, it's a young school overall. We were founded in 2000. So, it started as a preschool and then evolved from there. So, we're still in our adolescence, right? So we're approaching 20 years next year. We're approaching college age. So we're still really young in a lot of ways. And I think that's what's interesting too. This school attracts a certain type of mindset, both with students and parents and staff and faculty, is an entrepreneurship mindset, which heads need to have too, which is another webinar for another time. But I think that's what makes it really exciting, is not everyone's comfortable with a blank sheet of paper. Some people are not. And I think pretty quickly, are you a builder or are you a sustainer? And as you can see, I'm clearly a builder. I enjoy that. That's what gets me out of bed and gets me excited, is being part of a growth, kind of a situation. And we have a lot of those folks here. And so I think that's what's exciting about it, is that, and we are very clear with our communication. We're going to make mistakes. We are going to make errors, but we're going to own them, as a community, and we're going to strive to be better and be a continuous improvement organization. That's really key. So, but getting our name out there is so important, and in non-traditional maybe ways too. And some of the tools we've used, talking again about the website, having it responsive, the look and feel matching your school branding, your content is king, as we know. SEO, if you can spend some money there, it's always very highly recommended that you do that. Inbound marketing, which I know Rick talks a lot about, and a lot about that if you follow Rick's work. Blogs, he really pushed us down that path, encouraged us to spread the wealth with the blogging. So I do an occasional blog, but I'm not on a monthly cycle here, which is good. It's hard to keep up because we're all busy, but I enjoy it. I enjoy that time to write, and hopefully it's useful for folks that read it. And then of course testimonials, and so we did a lot of stories, parent stories, teacher stories, student stories, and we feature those on our website and our social media. And then Night for a Day, this was another idea from Rick, which was basically bring a friend type day. So last year we had about 33 show up. What we found, we did it on a day when public schools were closed. We were kind of used a little more for daycare, so we kind of refined it a bit with Rick's guidance, and so they had to fill out a little bit of an application to be able to come. So we had less. We had a little over 20 that came last week, but they were, I would say, more qualified leads, if you will. And in fact, we've already turned 2 of them into students. They started yesterday, an 8th grader and a 10th grader, and a few more that have applied for next year already. We had one, this is great too, 2 kids actually in 2nd grade. They were, at the end of the day, they left crying because they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to go back to their other school. So, I think if you get those, as we all know, getting them on your campus is so important. And then, of course, having them experience that. So Night for a Day has been a huge success for us.
And the strength of that is really the students getting involved and inviting their friend to come spend the day with them and be that night for a day. So
absolutely,
that's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about the head of schools role in leading the enrollment and marketing effort, because that's part of certainly what this webinar is about, and you've been demonstrating throughout based upon the things that you've done. But tell us a little bit more about this.
Sure. Well, the head is the CEO, and I think of it as a business owner. Like what business owner would possibly not be involved in marketing of their
Hmm.
company? I can't imagine that. Now, granted, I have a bent towards it, as we know, and I'm probably a small minority. I believe it's less than 5% heads come from advancement, believe it or not. And so I am a rare breed, I get that. But all heads can do this. All heads that come from the academic side can do this. Is be involved. I don't think any head is an expert in any area, most likely, and maybe shouldn't be. I'm a firm believer in hiring experts.
Hmm.
I'm hiring people like Rick, having people on my team that are experts in their area, and I'm really there to kind of steer the ship. So I'm a proponent, as late President Reagan would say, trust but verify. I give autonomy to my team, but I empower them to do their work. But I'm there to steer the ship, so they know that I'm there. I'm not here, even though I've been a development person, I'm not here to be the development guy or the marketing person. I'm here to be the head, and I'm here to help bounce ideas off of. I've got a 30,000-foot view for situations that come, the way of those folks, and I can help kind of guide a little bit. But really, it's about steering the ship and giving them the autonomy and the empowerment to do their work. But yeah, you've got it. You're the head marketer. You are the spokesperson in most cases, if not all, for the school. You need to be comfortable in that role. You need to be out there being that mouthpiece of the school. And it's hard for me to hear or even imagine not having that level of involvement in it. And that doesn't mean you don't trust your people. I trust my people very much so. I mean, they know that, but they know I'm also going to be involved too, because at the end of the day, the board is judging their sole employee on these metrics, right? I'm so being judged on how enrollment does, how fundraising does, how, what our scores are, essentially. So I've got to be involved in it, and in my view, I'd like to lead that effort. I think that's just kind of how I view it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, it's interesting, Dennis, because we both have the same background.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent 12 years leading enrollment, marketing, and development for a period of time at a university,
Yeah.
and then moved from there to the head of school role.
Yeah.
And you think about the traditional route, going from assistant principal, then to head of school. Certainly, they have the educational side covered, but like with what you and I have experienced, it's about bottom line. It's about
Yeah.
revenue coming in through enrollment and through fundraising that will create a sustainable school for the future. And
Absolutely.
so I actually like that pathway
Mhm.
to the role of a head of school. So
Yeah,
that's
I hope more. Yeah, I hope more heads I hope more development people and admissions and marketing people become heads, because, there's so much. You're right, because especially there's so many schools, as we know, under financial stress, and to have that skill set to be able to bring to the table, because a lot of the job is that, you're not the days of the master teacher are gone, in my view. The head is a CEO and is running a multi-million-dollar business, and you've got to be very comfortable asking people for money. You've got to be very comfortable out there trying to get new people to come into your school, and recruiting faculty and staff too. I think you've got to obviously have a strong understanding of academics to be able to do
right.
that. But these pieces of the job are very important.
Exactly. So this leads us to the last question. What advice do you have for other school heads that want to grow their enrollment?
Yeah.
What are you going to tell them to help them out as they're thinking about, leading their school to enrollment growth?
Yeah. Well, the first one's easy. Hire Rick.
I did
And
not tell you to say that, right? No.
no, you did not. But
You independently put this slide together, not me.
I did. And it's true though. What Rick brings to the table, the consultants are consultants for a reason. They help you, guide you along. A lot of us as heads have had campaign consultants, because what happens? It kind of goes to the back burner unless somebody's kind of talking to you on a regular basis. I love that Rick's added this weekly coaching to his repertoire. It really is awesome, because you've got to be held accountable when you get on that call with Rick, because he's going to ask you where you are with things. And I love that. Right? That's the only way that you're going to move forward. So I would say this even if Rick weren't on this webinar. Hire Rick and utilize his coaching. It's really important. Focus on mission. And that does seem very obvious, but schools, as we know, we keep putting more things in the backpack and we don't take things out of the backpack, right? But know what you do well. You can't be all things to all people. You've got to really understand your position in the marketplace. Don't just rely on anecdote. Do your research, and as Jim Collins likes to say, find your hedgehog. What is that thing that you are really, really, really good at? And that comes through a process. It may not be what you think you're really good at,
Hmm.
but find out what the community thinks you're really good at and what's missing in the community as you look at the landscape of the schools in your area, especially if you're in a highly competitive market. What's missing and what's the void that only you can fill, and what can you be the expert in? And so that to me is really crucial, because we get in that, we throw, oh, we know this is a good idea. Let's throw some money here. Let's throw some money there. Once you define that, it makes your decisions very easy, because we're going to be this, and we're going to put our resources towards this, and we're going to be the best at this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
A couple things I picked up along the way. I'll show you here in a minute the slide from Tom Overson, but Tom has some great stuff. He's a longtime head and is now a consultant, and he understands head being chief marketer too. In fact, he just recently did a podcast I would encourage you to listen to. Probably much more interesting than this, but I'll show you that in a minute. But that's when people said, how are you going to run the school? This is what I use, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We created together the portrait of a TVS teacher. These are the 10 characteristics that really make our teachers stand apart from other teachers. And then highlight your teachers who are all in. You've got those teachers in your community as heads that they are always at every athletic event. Anytime you ask for a sign up, any arts event, they're the first ones with their hands up. They're the people that the teachers that the kids want to be around, they gravitate to. Obviously, I would recommend forming a MAD team and leading it. That goes without saying at this point. Become a master storyteller, and how you can do this is none of us, time is the biggest commodity that none of us have enough of, and I appreciate your time for spending on this webinar. But utilize the folks on your team to give you the stories and the antidote, your teachers to tell you what's going on. And I do this all the time, and I tell the teachers, reach out to my assistant, Regina Maxfield, get on my calendar for when you're doing something in your classroom so I can get in there and see it, because then I become a master storyteller, right? Because when I'm talking to a prospective donor or prospective family, I can tell from what I've viewed firsthand on what I just saw in the classroom. So people love stories. There's all kinds of research on there about the brain and what the brain does. It lights up like crazy when they hear a good story. And be present and visible in your community as best you can. It's really hard to be everywhere all the time, but find those times. I try to get to one sporting event for each sport per year. Like that's one of my goals. I don't always reach it, but I try to. And man, kids love it and parents love it when you're there. I love it. I happen to love sports. That's an added bonus, but it's so great to build those relationships, to be able to see them and have them see you, and building. It's all about relationships. That's the business we're in.
It is.
So the virtuous cycle, as you see there from Tom's work, hiring high quality faculty and program, which increases your capacity to attract high quality students, demonstrate excellence as a result of the program. They generate stories of excellence, enhances your reputation, enhances school pride and fundraising capacity, which obviously provides opportunities to ask for more support for faculty and more money that goes back to it, and just keep this thing spinning like a top. And it's brilliant work by Tom. And of course, I credit him anytime I show this, because it really is how you create a great school. You focus on the teachers and the program, and you'll have that. And then this is our profile of a TVS teacher. These are the characteristics: a teacher and leader, willingness to innovate, being a kid magnet. That's and that David came up with that phrase. I can't take credit for it, but I love it. I use it all the time. Contributes to a positive school climate. You're a supportive teammate. You're involved inside and outside of the school. You obviously deliver the program at a high level, right? That's got to be paramount if you're a teacher. Being a lifelong learner, right? That is so key. And I've always viewed the head should be chief learner. Like if I'm not learning and growing, then how can I anticipate the members of my community to be doing it? So I'm always trying to lead that charge. Being a Christian school, exhibiting our Christ skills. We have 26 Christ skills that we focus on, and we want to make sure that we're exhibiting those and exhibiting a growth mindset. Everybody knows the work, Dweck's work on that. But those are the things we talked about, and then we evaluate our teachers based on this too. It's been great, and they contributed, which is really good.
Yeah.
So I threw in a little advice for marketing communications folks, because that's probably the majority of the people that are viewing this. Obviously, make sure you have a mobile-friendly, interactive website. Have an active and organic social media presence. The importance of, submitting reviews. Focus your social media posts on grades that are not at capacity. Really looking at that closely. Is there a way that you can, if you're low in preschool, making sure you err a little side, more on that side than maybe your high school if you're down, depending on your situation. Increasing your word of mouth. Focus on inbound marketing. Have an impactful impression video. That's so important. Videos under 1 minute, nothing more than that. People aren't paying attention. We've got very short attention spans. And then actively listen to your community through one-on-ones, bringing people in, having new parents come in for coffees, just asking them what they're feeling about the school. Those stories that are exchanged there, when people start cheering up, talking about how much they love your school, then they go out and tell 10 people about that. And then just increasing the feedback loop, making sure parents know that you are accessible for them to come talk to you. And that concludes my presentation.
Very good. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yes,
Yes.
great presentation in this interview style format. Because I'm using an older computer, I was explaining this to Dennis before. My regular computer died this week, so I've got a new one on order. So I'm using an older version of a Mac, and when I click on the questions, the screen is going to go away. So I just wanted you to know there's nothing wrong with your computer. It's my computer. So I want to be able to see if there's any questions and give you the opportunity to be able to ask any questions of Dennis or myself. And there was a question early on from Dawn. She wanted to know, are you a day school or a boarding school?
We're a day school.
Yeah, so there's no boarding component at
Nope.
all, nor
Nope.
plans to do that
Nor plans to
in the future.
Yep, co-ed day.
Okay, very good. And then Miriam is basically, she's saying your presentation was informative, practical, and on point. So that's very encouraging. So thank you, Miriam, for sharing that.
Thank you, Miriam.
Someone else have a question you wanna share with us? Rebecca saying, I learned a lot. Thank you very much. So we're starting to get some people coming on board. And you know, I have a question for you, Dennis, as we're waiting on a few of these other questions to come in. Are you guys anticipating more growth for next year? Are you planning for that continued sustained growth?
We are. Yeah, we were looking at the high school numbers for next year. I think conservatively, we feel like we'll get over 105, if not more, which is great. Already looking at plans to do a campus master plan, which we also did at my other schools that I was a part of. You know, we're very quickly need to be thinking forward for that. So, you know, we hope, you know, looking at some preliminary numbers, 575 to maybe 600, you know, would be great next year, and very much in the cards if the retention rate holds and our new student numbers hold. But yeah, it's an exciting time. You know, I think the school eventually, I see a 700, 750 student school. We're 26 acres. That's a pretty good size school. You know, we'd have to do a little bit more building to make that happen than what we've already done. But I think it's very doable in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, that's great. So we got a bunch of questions now, Dennis.
So
perfect. A little stall question I asked. Jen actually is from a school I'm working with in Chicago, Grace Lutheran, and she says hello from Chicago. Love Naples. Her family lives across the street from you, the Reagans, and so yeah, just appreciate what you're doing there. Allison wants to know the best way to convince teachers that they have an integral part of the retention process.
Ooh, good. Whew, yeah, that's, you know, I think that's an ongoing conversation that you have with teachers. And, you know, we've talked about requirements of like X amount of events to attend, you know. I'm just not a huge fan. I wish it was more, they were intrinsically motivated to do this kind of thing. But I think as you see the growth of the school, and then I think we've done too is as we've been able to grow, we've been able to give back to the teachers. So with compensation, with additional paid time off, you know, I think those sorts of things, you know, look, most teachers don't want more kids in their class, right? Like they kind of like, I like having a smaller environment. I totally get that. But if you don't get to a certain, you know, kind of threshold, then you're not sustainable. So I think just getting people to buy in, and again, it goes back to relationships, you know, our admissions team and our marketing team and development team, you know, really getting the teachers integrated into what we're doing and having that, we're all in this together, you know. And I think if you see people of all levels of the organization out there holding a sign or doing, you know, whatever at an event, you're more willing to be part of it, you know, that everybody's jumping in. And so, but yeah, that's an ongoing thing, you know, I think for sure for teachers to kind of buy into that.
Yeah, very good. There's at least 10 questions that have come in. So Rebecca, hey Rebecca, I was actually at Rebecca's school yesterday in North Fort Myers. So I drove down and was there at a classical Christian school. She wants to know, do you have enrollment open all year long? or is it a
Yes.
period of open and closed enrollment? So
Yeah, we're currently rolling enrollment.
yeah,
We
but
definitely have.
you're open right now for next year.
We are, depending if we have space. So we are full in a
Right.
few grades. We're full in sixth grade, seventh grade. We actually opened up another section of sixth grade, and we're almost full in the preschool. So yeah, so we have priority re-enrollment. We're not on perpetual enrollment yet. That's something we're looking at down the road. I made enough changes in year one. We got
Right,
to
exactly.
let the place settle a little bit, but we are looking at that. So we have like a lot of schools have that window of time between mid-January and the end of January, and then we open it up to other families that are looking
Yeah.
outside. But that, as you begin to fill up, you really put pressure on those families that are dragging their feet. I'm not a big fan of penalizing families for not getting their enrollment in on time or putting an incentive in. Rick and I,
Right.
we've talked about that a lot. But I think when the word begins to get out, it just takes one. It only takes one family that doesn't get in because they drug their feet a little bit, and you replace them. That word
Yeah.
spreads, and everybody gets in a lot quicker.
Exactly. High demand, limited seats is the best situation to be in.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Kim says, thank you, very informative. Rod wants to know, how do you get your community to be okay with you only going to one game per sport per year?
It's tough. I go to more. I mean, trust me. I go to a lot of I'm more so probably I mean, I go to basketball games, more volleyball, and some of those games. When I say one, I'm talking like maybe I might make it to one lower school swim meet or something. Like it's not like I'm actually at quite a few events. In fact, we have a fan app this year that's been great. So you check into the games, and I had been in second place only to the athletic director
Oh,
up until
wow.
last week. So I actually do get to a lot of stuff. I know that sounded like maybe I don't, but I try to make a point to, we have 39 teams across the three seasons. So I try to get to at least one per year because I think it's important. So
Yeah, definitely. David wants to know, do you include your preschool, your pre-K to kindergarten numbers in your retention percentage calculation?
we do.
Yeah, that's an important one because you want them to stay
Yeah.
beyond preschool.
Absolutely. We struggle here in Florida with VPK, which is a free pre-kindergarten program. And so those of us that are in Florida can relate to that. So sometimes you lose from age 3 to pre-K, but what we're doing to combat that is we're actually pushing all of our related arts, our enrichment classes down into the 3-year-old program this year. So Spanish and music and art.
Hmm.
And you don't get that at VPK. So that's kind of that difference that we're trying to highlight. So
Right, right. Amy says, thank you, excellent presentation. Can't wait to show this to her CEO, who's out of the office today. She may actually contact you to follow up about your retention ideas.
oh, perfect.
So that's great. And Amy's
Please
with
do.
Heritage Christian in Indianapolis.
Excellent.
Yep. Jennifer is saying property taxes are so high in their surrounding neighborhoods that it really justifies going to the public schools.
Mm.
She's trying hard to share the story of
Yeah.
how we are worth every penny of tuition, and certainly
Yeah.
that's a challenge for every school.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge for us, Collier County and Naples, as you can imagine.
Yes.
We've got great public schools. I think where you see it mostly is the lower school, the elementary school. A lot of parents will say, well, there's really good, A-rated schools, right, in our district, so we'll go there. But middle school, we're not doing middle school. And so we get a lot. That's why we opened up another section of sixth grade, is we get a lot of kids in middle school. So our thinking is, okay, so we'll probably maintain 2 sections at the lower school, but we can expand. We'll do the inverted pyramid and open up sections in high school and middle school, and keep that pressure in the system that way. So
Yeah.
that's where we feel like where our biggest opportunity is.
Yep. Amanda wants to know, when you use language like no passive aggressive behavior will be tolerated, how do you enforce something like that? What is your strategy as head of school and holding accountability for no drama in your faculty?
We call them out on it.
Hmm.
I mean, if
So you have to be willing to confront, right?
you have to be willing to confront, and that goes back to love and accountability. We love you, right? We love you as a teacher and as a person, but we're going to hold you accountable for your behavior, because what your behavior is doing is impacting others, and it's
Yeah.
impacting in a negative way our community. And I think when you know where it's coming from, we're not being punitive. We're trying to help you become the best version of you. Going back to those 6 questions that I jumbled up a little earlier, but one of those was, what can I do to help you become the best version of you? And part of that is being a positive person. Like, everyone has control of of that.
Right.
You can choose to be positive or negative, and so we stay focused on that.
Exactly. Randy wants to know if this presentation is going to be available later. Yes, later today or tomorrow, I'm going to send you a link to be able to watch the recording. You can share it with your team. Anyone who wasn't part of this live presentation will get a recording, and it will be available on my website afterwards as well. So Jerry says, great presentation. We're being told that growth can come through offering early childhood offerings, essentially very young, 1-year-old and up. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think for some schools that have I don't know all of Jerry's situation, but some schools that are now looking at that as a feeder into their own lower school, which I'm assuming that's where this question is coming from. I think so. I think you have to be willing for that to be a little bit of a lost leader, though, just as if you're starting a high school, and know that you're not going to, be full maybe right away. Now, sometimes you maybe, it depends on your marketplace too, but I think getting them early before they make decisions elsewhere. So some schools start at pre-K, some schools start at 2 years old. I think the earlier you can get them, the thought there is maybe it's not a huge moneymaker because your ratios aren't that great financially. But if you get them there, then they can become yours for life.
Right, right. Another person's asking about rooting out gossip and the passive aggressive behavior. So how do you go about doing that when maybe it's unseen to you?
Mm-hmm.
You're not directly aware of it. So how do you root out that gossip?
Yeah, I think surrounding yourself with positive people and surrounding yourself with people that you trust that will give you information that maybe you're not hearing, and then having conversations about that with them,
Yeah,
of saying, look, this is coming. Look, if you confront someone, parent, which we've done, or teacher, and say, the word on the street is this is how people are perceiving you,
mm,
it's eye-opening for some people because you know perhaps they're not seeing it for themselves. They think what they're doing is just how they are, but they don't realize how that's having an impact on others. And so you just have to have real conversations, and they're not easy. Trust me,
right,
rooting out passive aggressive behavior, those are big
right,
things. Those are big statements to make, right? And are we perfect at it? Absolutely not. But are we striving to that? 100% we are. And every community has a small percentage of those that the glass is always half empty,
yeah,
right? But you've got to, I think, as you can begin to move those folks, and they will begin to self-select out of your community. If you remain focused on positivity, they're going to say, you know what, this isn't for me, because being negative by yourself isn't a lot of fun.
yeah,
It's only fun when you have some people with you in that conversation. So if you walk away from those conversations and don't play into it, they become kind of on an island, and the whole
right.
thing reverses. So
Exactly right. That's a great point. David wants to hear again how your admissions department is set up. One full-time director, a half-time position that's a full-time position split with development,
that's
correct?
right. That's it.
All right, very good. Um, so Jennifer wants to know, how do you convince parents that your school is worth that return on investment? Good luck.
Yeah. Well, you got to see it. You can't
Yeah,
you got to come for a tour, and you got to feel it in the hallways. You can't Your website is your front door to admissions, but it's just the front door. You got to get inside the house, to use that analogy. You've got to experience it and feel it. And I think it's different things for different people. For
yeah.
some, which we'll have this year, are some college acceptances. We had our first college acceptance last week, which was awesome, which happened to
I saw
be
that.
yeah, to Florida Southern, which is a Methodist university, and we're a
Hmm,
Methodist school, so that's pretty cool
yeah,
for us. It was apropos. But they've got to see that. But so for some, some they want to see what's your matriculation to college, what's your scholarship dollars. Okay, if I do the math on the 4 years, then this check makes sense to write. Other parts of it, though, I think is just your value system, and I think that's what's neat about a faith-based school in particular is, you know, you can pray here. We encourage it. We have chapel. And if that's part of your value system, then you've got a leg up in a lot of ways. And I think schools like ours and other faith-based schools are going to become more and more in demand as public schools steer towards a
sure.
more kind of anti kind of Christian agenda, as we're seeing, right? And I think that's helpful. And other private schools that are secular, they have their own points as well that they can make on academic prowess and athletics and arts and that sort of thing. So, but you've got to celebrate those things and prove that value proposition.
Yep. I think you're winning the award for the most questions ever asked on a webinar. So they just keep coming in. Katie, are you okay with time?
Yeah, let's go. Let's keep going.
All right. So Katie wants to know, do you use any specific tools to help you and your parent group with word of mouth strategies?
Specific tools. So we have a Facebook group. Is that kind of the question a
Yeah,
little
I
bit?
think a Facebook group. You gave
Yeah.
what did you give
Oh,
your ambassadors?
yeah. Of course, I should have had a little visual, but we gave them little cards. They kind of were the
Yep,
three things we were asking them to do
yep,
to be out in the community. We sent periodic emails. We also celebrated people that gave us a review. So we put that on
right.
our forward, like our public Facebook page as well. Thanking people for taking the time. We also too, if I receive a really nice email from a parent that's very complimentary, I'll reach out, or I'll have someone on our team reach out and say, hey, would you be comfortable putting that on our social media? It's so nice. You can change a little bit, but my goodness, that's kind of gold. I know for me, when I looked at this school, that's where I went. In fact, if you read my letter on our website, I took the approach rather than a typical head of school letter that talks about how great our school is and experience, which I did have some of that in there. I talked about my own experience as a parent of two
Mm,
children that are here.
mm,
And I said, this is what I did when I was looking at this as an opportunity for my family. I looked at the reviews and I saw organic belief in our school. And I thought, this is an interesting place. I'm going to continue to pursue this. And I did that even before I applied. So,
yeah,
but yeah, I think you've got to, those are some of the tools that we've used. Push emails, obviously,
right,
close
right.
Facebook groups to get the excitement going, et cetera.
Yep. So Tricia wants to know, what was the fan app that you mentioned where you checked
Oh,
into?
yeah, that's our sport. I can, I'm trying to see who, I have my phone off so no one will call me. Um, it's I can't remember who puts it out, but if you kind of search for fan related sports apps, their company, I can't think of the name of it. Our athletic director did all of this, but you can get your school an app for that, and then basically there's an app for that, and you simply you can add different events to it and check in, and then you can give out like t-shirts and spirit gear and that sort of thing, and you could put we have all kinds of things. It's not just athletics. We have arts. We have you come to the movie night. We just had a movie night for as part of Hispanic Awareness Month. We showed Coco and we had paella. It was great. We had 350 people show up, and
Sounds good.
you received, yeah, it was excellent. So you receive points for that. So yeah, there's I don't have that. I don't have it. But you can email me. My email is on our website. It's also
And I'll actually include it in the follow-up email,
perfect.
Dennis's
Yeah, so
email.
perfect. You
And
can just email me and I
yep,
can find that for you.
yep, that'd be great. So Katie, Allison, and who else? Miriam said, thank you, great presentation. And then Katie asked a question, are you a proponent of marketing your lower, middle, and upper schools individually to target specific profiles?
At times, yeah, at times. I think you have to look at your overall enrollment. Kind of see where you're low and target those. And we kind of have it both ways. We have the collateral that gives you the full view of the school, and we also have it by division, and then we kind of can piecemeal it that way. Um,
Yep,
and then, like I said earlier, targeting your marketing towards those places where you're a little bit soft. You just so happen to be featuring your lower school like maybe 3 out of 5 times for a little bit, and those are some strategies I've used that have been successful.
yeah. So Rosa, who's actually the director of admission at
Yes,
Florida Christian,
yes. Hi,
um,
Rosa.
she wants to know, and that's the school you attended.
Yeah.
Um, she wants to know, did you make any changes in the way that resources were allocated, your budget? Any need to hire or fire anyone? Please explain.
Um, well, with Rick's advice, we created a marketing budget which didn't exist before. So, it's 1% of our overall budget this year. We're going to look to grow that as
Yeah,
years to come. We added staffing to this functionality of the school. Certainly didn't fire anybody. We had some great people in place. And we had some people, some of the folks in our team that, opted to be in other parts of the school, going back to teaching, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think really just really adding to the team some great folks. And I think as you begin to build your school profile, you begin to attract folks that have experience in different areas. And we've been able to bring in team members that have great experience in independent schools, some local and some kind of in other parts of the country to add to the team. And that's always helpful when you can do that. And I think always looking at your budget in ways, going back to what can you outsource and what can you bring in-house. And I've done it both ways. I've used a budget an advertising budget to create a position. I did that when I was at ODA. As I said, well, this is tradition. We've used this for traditional marketing, but now we want to switch focus. And I actually think I can get a lot of this accomplished in-house, and that was successful. I
Mhm.
think it's all about kind of your individual situation. you know.
Yeah, it really is.
Mhm.
Definitely. And one more question. Amber
Okay.
wants to know any ideas on how to increase retention from preschool to kindergarten?
Yeah, I think, again, getting parents into the classroom and seeing. So one of the things we've done, here's a couple ideas. So I've done everything from, like, at New School we call it Donuts with Dennis. So we kind of made it gender neutral. Here we have donuts with dad and muffins with mom. And so what we did this year was we moved that into the Learning Commons, which is like our tinkering space. Or this is where the kids get to go when they're in kindergarten. And the dads and moms came in, some grandparents, and they got to tinker with the pre-Kers, and they got to say, and then we did a quick little, ding, ding, ding. Hey, you know what? We want to tell you a little bit about our kindergarten program. In fact, we're going to offer you a tour for those of you that can stay. We're not trying to hit you over the head with it, but kind of it's you take those opportunities where you can get them. Getting those kids, again, those bridge events. So the stay and play, like I talked about, was another strategy. Getting those kids, so we have chapel at different divisions. So bringing those junior Kers into our lower school chapel. Anytime you can get them to see, and one of the things we're looking at next year, we don't have uniforms in our preschool, but we're looking to add
Hmm.
potentially our junior kindergarten as part of that. Is kind of get them over that threshold to where it seems that this is this is good. I like this. What you'll see too is you'll see families change their way of thinking. Families that are like, we're public school 100%, to we've got this great friend group now. Little Johnny's happy. This school seems to be doing great things. This, our boy or daughter, or our son or daughter, likes to get up and go to school every day. That's pretty big.
Hmm.
I don't know. That's not always the case. And so I think they're enjoying their experience. Why don't we give kindergarten a try? And I think if you can get them over that hump, just like any of those humps, like into that grade, then you've got a really good chance of getting. When you lose the oldest sibling, it's a tough road to hoe for you. You've got to really
Yeah,
work hard
yeah.
to get those younger kids in. But if you get that oldest one, focus in and build those relationships and utilize your parents to help you do that. If you have parents in those grades that have older children that are already in the school at older grades, utilize them. That's something we're doing too this year, putting together some coffees and parties with those families to talk about their experiences with these families that are still kind of on the fence about kindergarten. So those are a few things we've done.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great way to end the webinar and your presentation. Thank you so much, Dennis, for taking time out of your busy schedule. This has been great. It's one of those webinars that I can easily see that I will share with heads of school out there, because it's so relevant and important to them as they think about leading growth in their schools. And you guys have been successful. So congratulations. It's been a privilege to partner with you this past year at the Village School, and continue to value our relationship and look
So
forward to future successes along the way. So thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it.
thank you, Rick. It was my honor and pleasure to be a part of this, and I was just so touched when you asked me to do it, and it's been great and a lot of fun as always when you and I get together. So thank you,
Yeah, excellent. All right, thanks, Dennis. We'll sign off, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
thank you.